Okay, so in this video I'm just going to show you how you could use this to sort of animate a looping sort of SDK system. So we have this gear, and if I want to speed up or slow down this one gear, it would be nice to be able to have every other gear. I could have 40 of these attached of different sizes and shapes, and just speed up or slow down based on the speed of this one gear. And that would definitely save me tons of time if I'm working with a really massive machine or something like that. So basically the process is exactly the same. What we'll do is we need to pay attention, however, at the very beginning of which direction these things actually matter. So we're just going to go from 0 to basically 0 to 360, right? So which direction, we'll do a positive direction here. So we want to go this way. So if we're moving this way in a counterclockwise direction, it's the positive value. You see rotate Y is going up, okay? So if it's moving in a counterclockwise direction this way, then this object needs to move in a clockwise direction. So it would have to move in a negative direction. And since this one is moving in a clockwise direction, this one would need to move in a counterclockwise direction. So you have to pay really close attention to those things so that you set up your SDKs properly. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to set our initial keys by selecting the window first. So let's open up the window, and it's blank. So I'm going to select the driver, that's this guy, so load driver, and then I'm going to select both of these and say load driven. So now see I have two separate objects. So here's the trick. So we're going to select this first, and we're going to use the rotate, what is that? Rotate Y. So this is the rotate Y for the driver, okay? And then on the cube 2, which is this guy, we're going to use Z. So rotate Z. And then for this guy, cube 3, we're going to use rotate Y again. Alright, now this one is going to move in a counterclockwise direction, which is a positive number. This one is going to go a negative number, and this one is going to go a positive number. That's just something to keep in mind. So we'll start with this, and we'll go ahead and click key. So this keys everything at 0. So let's go ahead and set this to 360 in a positive direction. So our rotate Y is 360 degrees. And this guy is negative 360 in the Z. So negative 360 in the Z axis. And this one is rotating in the Y axis, but in a positive direction, 360. Alright, then we're going to click key. Now, if I go to here, and I set this to 0, and then I move this in a positive direction, you see it's moving. Now something didn't get keyed on this, so let's find out what I did on that real quick. So this one's fine. Let's set this back to 0. And let's go here. Let's make sure, oh, I didn't have them both selected. That's what it was. So on this guy, I need to make sure rotate Z is selected. And you can have them both selected, but since we're using different values, we're going to have to be really careful. So we're going to just do one at a time. So I'm going to set this to rotate Z, and let me set this back to 0, and let's set this to 0, and let's make sure that cube 2 is selected, and the Z axis, rotate Y, and then I'm going to click key. Okay, now I can change this value to 360, not in the Z though, to 360 positive value, and I'm going to set this one, make sure it's still selected, and rotate Z to negative 360, and then I'm going to click key. Now it should work. So let me set this back to 0, and then I'm going to rotate it in a positive direction, and you see that as long as it's moving in a positive direction, it works. Now once it reaches 360, it will stop again. So I must be grabbing something else. Alright, so make sure that's a Z. Let's see what's happening to this. It looks like something else was rotating. Whoops. Okay, anyway, that's good enough for now. So we're going to rotate. I'm going to animate this thing. So I'm going to start it at 0. And on frame 0, I'm just going to hit S, which keys it. And then I'm going to go to frame 120, since that's the last frame on my current thing. And I'm going to set its rotate Y to not 360, but 359, because 360 and 0 are the same thing in rotation. So 359 will make sure there's not a little stutter when it sort of loops. So I'm going to hit S again, and that should key it. Yep. All right, so I'm getting some weird little rotation. It's something I did there when I rotated it, but just ignore that for now. I think it's slightly at an angle, so it's not rotating properly. So no big deal, but you can get the gist of what's supposed to be happening. So when I hit play, you'll see that it's rotating. And I could check the curve and see what's happening. And it's also speeding up and slowing down. There's a couple little quirks I could fix, but I don't want to get into the whole animation side of fixing animation curves and things of that nature. If you're familiar with animation and animation curves, you'll know how to fix that little fall off, the acceleration and deceleration thing that's going on right here. And like I said, this is slightly tilted when I froze its transformations, so it created that weird effect. So it was just me not paying attention, doing it too fast. So anyway, you get the gist of how that works. Like I said, you could have 30 different ones being controlled completely differently. And it would be really nice to be able to speed up or slow down this animation to control a whole bunch of other gears and mechanisms. So that's set driven key.